Hi everyone, welcome. Welcome. How's everybody doing today? Let me know that you can hear me and see me okay. I'm just gonna check my broadcast really quick. Let's see. We've got a lot of people joining us live. If you're here in the chat, please say hi and let us know where you are joining in from. I am in California. Okay, good. It looks like it's working. Got a weird lighting situation today because it is super bright out here. So hopefully you all can hear and see me okay. But let's see. We've got a lot of people. Sydney, Pila, Kim, Francesca, Carol, Elaine, Cheryl. So much fun to see everybody. Hello from Toronto and Florida. Hey, Beth. Berlin, Germany. Awesome. Welcome, Ursula. Wellington, Florida. NorCal. Hey, somebody's down the street from me. Pennsylvania. Soggy, Southwest. Great. Thank you, everybody. Diana from Ohio. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. And for those of you who are joining... Oh, sorry, my alarm's going off. For those of you who are joining from an international locale, welcome to. Thank you so much. I'm sure it is, I know I saw Roz's message. It's a little late there. So just to remember, you can always watch the replay right here in Crowdcast. So all you have to do is once you've RSVP'd, you go back to the same link and you'll be able to watch the entire replay after the live session is over. So you won't miss a thing. You can always go back and watch it. And you can always watch some of my previous live streams too. If you click on my little face up there on the top, my name, you'll get to my profile. And also if you click follow on there, every time I do a live event, you'll be notified if I am going live in Crowdcast. So that's about... Most of you have been here before. Is anybody brand new to my live streams? If you're new, can you put a 1 in the chat? And in case you are new, my name is Tracy Bautista, and I am an artist, a designer, a teacher, and an author. And today we are gonna have a little holiday fun. I know it is a little early to celebrate the holidays, but actually next week is Thanksgiving. So I wanted to share a few new things that are in my shop. If you've been following me on Instagram or you get my email newsletters, you know that I have launched a new set of stamps and stencils and masks. So I'm going to be sharing some of those today and giving you a little sneak peek of what's available in the shop for the holidays, and talk a little bit more too about Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So if you've been in my community for a while, you know that I don't have sales very often, and usually Black Friday, Cyber Monday is our biggest sale of the year. So I have some fun things that I'm going to be sharing, and some really fun bundles that you'll be able to get at highly discounted prices of some of my e-courses, and some grab bags of some of my previously released stamps and paints. So there is only a limited number of them available, so I'm sure they're going to get scooped up pretty quickly. And I'll tell you more about it coming up. But today we're gonna have some fun, and I'm just gonna paint and share just a little bit of art with my new stencils and with my watercolors. And let me see how everybody's doing. Oh, welcome. We have a handful of you that are new. Awesome. Well, welcome so much. I am thrilled to have you here with me. I do these live streams, usually 1 per quarter, where they're various topics, where I share some of the new products I might have designed or developed. Sometimes it's my paint, sometimes it's my stencils and stamps, and then other times it is for some of my new courses or membership programs that are available. So I'm so grateful for all of you who have joined me today, and I am looking forward to sharing with you some of these fun little tools. My desk is a mess because I was actually playing with some of the stencils, and I am going to turn my camera down so you can see a little bit of what's going on here. And I didn't really clean it too well, so you'll kind of get to see how I work and what's kind of on my desk while I work. I'm very messy when I'm painting, so I guess it's just part of being a mixed media artist. So okay, let's see. Tamara says, first time on the cast. Yay, love your books. Thank you so much. So if you do have a question underneath the video, if you're watching this on the desktop, you'll see a little ask a question tab, and you can write your questions in there. That's the best place to ask a question. I can show you it really quick just in case. Let's just make sure I don't have some funky face there. Every time I show the screen, sometimes I have some funny expression on my face. So let me show you all. So underneath my video, let me just X out of this thing right here. There is this ask a question tab, and you can ask your question right there. If you see a question that you have the same question, you can actually upvote your question. So definitely use this time to ask me questions about the collection, about mixed media in general, about supplies. I would love to answer them for you. And if you if you have to leave at any time, you can always come back and watch the replay right after. So I am looking forward to sharing more with you. So before I start, I'm just going to show you just some of the fun little things I was playing with before. And today I had titled this Watercolor Florals and Stenciled Holiday Cards. And so I wanted to show you kind of some ideas of how I would use my stencils just to create some really fun and fast backgrounds using inks, using my watercolors, and also incorporating my stamps in there. And then how I take those papers and then turn them into all kinds of different things. I mean, the papers could be used for collage. They could be used to make cards. If you're making your cards for the holidays, definitely. Or if you wanted just like a wintry theme. So I'm going to be sharing a couple of fun ways to use the stencils, and hopefully we can fit them all in. But I just love this collection. Was inspired because obviously if you know my work, you know I love florals, but I have been really having fun just playing with them in a really loose way, the stencils in a loose way, I should say. And oh, hold on. Thanks. I forgot to switch back. Okay. Sorry about that. So you didn't miss much. I was just showing some of the papers. I just lifted them up, so I don't think you missed too much. But what I'm going to show today is just some fun and simple ways to get color down really quickly, and then using these as kind of a base where you're going to cut them up. So I'm not aiming for anything beautiful or pretty as far as composition goes with these pages. It's really just getting a little bit of the color on the paper, and then I'll work on top of them a little bit more. So these I just wanted to show. I was playing with different mediums. One of the things I love is using light molding paste, so I'm going to show that today. And you can get some really pretty effects with that, and also with fiber paste. So I have both of those here, and we're going to dive right in, but I just wanted to show you some of these really simple backgrounds. So I prepped some of these so that you could see them in action. So this one actually is the light molding paste, and it's perfect for watercolor or inks. And so I'm going to share with you how you can turn your paper into these really fun, almost like embossed pieces when you use an acrylic medium. And then same with the stamps. This was stamped into the actual, so you can kind of see some of the stamp designs in there. But once I start using the watercolors and the inks on them, you'll see them come alive. And so, like I said, it's not meant to be, like, this is not meant to be perfect or pretty, because I'm just going to chop up these papers to create my handmade cards. And while I'm going to create some here, but a lot of times I love to stitch, and I'm going to show you some samples of other cards I've designed so you can kind of get an idea of just different things you can do. So today it's all about using the stamps, and I'm going to share with you the stamps and stencils. And then I'll talk about how you can also use digital papers. If you watched my last live, which was in, I believe, almost the end of September, I think, I did a lesson on Procreate and how to create collage papers in there. So a lot of the techniques I'm sharing with you today, while I'm creating, painted papers, you could also do the same thing for in Procreate using digital stamps and stencils and brushes. And that is a little hint of what's coming up in my next holiday open house. We're going to dive into doing a little Procreate with some of my new brushes in the next couple of weeks after Thanksgiving. So, okay. Awesome. I just want to make sure you all can see me now. Yay. Okay. I think we're all good now. So if you saw on the other day, did I bring another sheet? I thought I did. So here's one of the stamp sheets. I cut up the other stamp sheet, but I thought I brought the other whole stamp sheet. Hold on. I'll just hold this up so you get an idea. So the stamps, actually, let me put this back here. These are photopolymer, and they're a lot of fun because you can use them with ink pads and you can use them with acrylic. You can kind of seeing my ring light back there. So I actually got the samples just the other day. So they are available for pre-order. And so if you're not familiar with how I do my collections, I only do them in limited batches, and so I will put them in. I put them available for pre-order, so I know how many to order, because I don't keep a lot of inventory of the products in my studio or in my shop. So that's one of the nice things about the manufacturer I work with. I can always get stuff redone if I want to relaunch the collection again. But if you're interested, definitely order in the pre-order, because after probably the middle of December, or no, early December, I am not going to be taking any more orders. So here's one of the stamp sets, and then the other one is in pieces. So let me show you. So one of the ways that I use the stamps is I use them without the blocks, because I'm usually painting with them. So you can see these are they're kaleidoscope floral kind of snowflakes. That's the name of the collection. And so you can kind of see they're really fun, and they make some really beautiful patterns. So if you like symmetry, this is very much a symmetrical stamp. But it also is. It's also got the hand, kind of like a hand drawn texture, because I actually hand drew these, and you can see, like, if you look at the stencils, you can see that it's not like a perfectly straight line, and that's very much true to how all of my stencils and stamps are. They're hand drawn instead of creating them from scratch on the computer. Although I did hand draw these on my iPad too. So I guess that's a little bit computer aided, but I still consider it drawing, because I'm not starting on just like on the computer. So, and using like a digital image that I'm creating that's not hand drawn. So if that makes any sense. So I'm going to turn this camera down and start painting, and then I'll show you some more of the other stencils and stamps too when it's down, especially because it's hard to see because there's no backing behind them. So let me turn this down. And again, if you have any questions, you can always put them underneath the video. Okay, hang tight for 1 second and then I will be right back. Okay. Let me just get this lighting going. And I've got a little sleepy puppy underneath here. And then we're going to dive right in. Okay, so here are some of the stamps. And then here are some of the stencils. I guess I should have taken all the plastic out of here. So on these, they are a little bit different than the stamp, some of them, and like this one doesn't have a stamp. And each one you'll get a mask and a stencil, so you'll get both pieces as one. That was something that I started doing with some of my previous collections, and that way we didn't waste the background when I created the masks, because I actually love using masks in here in my work. So you get both the outside and the inside, even though some, like this one's a little bit thin, but you can still use that. It's a great little shape that you could use and roll paint in. And then you can see also here what they look like. And a couple of them, actually, these samples are a little bit different because when I design stencils, you get samples back, and then some of the, like on this particular one, you'll see how thin the line is. And so I had to thicken some of these up. So they look just a tad little different, just because some of the lines needed to be thickened up. But for the most part, this is the stencil collection. There's 7 stencils and 7 masks, and they are kind of the mixture of the snowflakes and florals, and they make beautiful patterns. So those are those, and then let's just show you these. So like I said earlier, what I like to do is take them, and I actually will just cut right around this area. If I'm not gonna put it on a block, then I just use the acetate as my backing, because I like to leave this on just so that I can see what stamp it is, and then that way I can just throw this right in the water. So this is how I use most of my stamps. And then if I want to put them on blocks, I use these little acrylic blocks too. So these work great too if you want to be a little bit more precise when you're stamping. These are my previous stamp collections. I did a few different florals and leaf kind of stamps in the last collection I launched earlier last year. So that is just a quick and easy. I think I want to use this one too today. And then you'll notice that some of my stamps, they're really close together, and that is intentional. So the reason I do that is because I give you the option to actually paint it as one strip if you wanted to, or one plate. And then you could also, if you wanted to, cut it and create 4 separate stamps. And so I did this also with my last Soulful Scribbles stamp collection too, where you could cut apart the entire you could use it as one plate, or you could cut it into multiple pieces. So just wanted to kind of give you a heads up of how these could be used. So you can see I use this one as one strip so far, and I'll show you just really quickly the difference in, let's see, here it is. So you'll notice that when I'm stamping, it is all about pattern play. I'm not worried about creating perfect marks. That's not what I'm trying to do when I am painting. Oops, sorry, my light there. So I just want to show you, hold on, let me just make sure this is bright enough. It's a little better. Okay, so kind of want to show you the difference. So this is stamp pad ink. So if you want a really crisp image, then you definitely would want to use a stamp pad. And this, I think, is one of the distress inks. This is my handmade watercolors that's painted on the stamp. So this is the initial stamped image, and I love what happens because the watercolor, it's so fluid that it gets into the grooves, so you get definitely a different look. So this is the same, these two are the same stamped images right there. But then when you stamp it again, once this is the first impression, if you stamp it again, then you can get the detailed image. So for those of you who have my pan watercolors or my inks, you can use those, and I'm going to show in a minute how to use those inks. And then this is a combination of my inks mixed with dilutions, but brushed on. So you can see how you can get a variety of different looks from the stamps, depending on the type of ink or paint that you use. And with this also, so here we've got a little bit of fiber paste and molding paste mixed together, so it's not as textured as, I mean, it's textured, but if you use fiber paste by itself, it's very textured. So this kind of gives a smooth and a like a mixture of that texture. And then this is a mixture of a little bit of gesso with the inks and also with my watercolors. So we will play right now so you can see them in action. Thanks, Simone. She said, brilliant idea to keep the masks. Yeah, because I had designed my initial, I think it was, which one was it? I think it was my deconstructed florals set when that first came out. And I just didn't want to waste all of that extra material. So I had asked them to see if we could save it, and it ended up working out great. And it gives you, more value for what you buy. So that's a win-win for everybody, I think. So right now, this set is exclusively available only in my shop as a bundle, but it will be available at Stencil Girl. The single, a selection of these stencils will be available on Stencil Girl's site, I'm assuming probably after the new year, just because the holiday season is a bit busy. But right now, these are limited edition in my shop, and you get you'll get the entire set if you buy them through me. And like I said, if you do want to get them later, you can always do that too. Okay, so I actually, before I do the spray, I'm actually going to start with the, let's use this one. I'm going to start with the light molding paste because I just want to show you this because I'll just move it over so it dries and then we can put it aside. So using molding paste, gesso, anything that you want to use to create that texture, you just need a palette knife, and I've got just this wide plastic palette knife, and I'm just filling in the inside of that stencil, and then I'll lift it off. So you want to make sure you get all the way to the edge, because then that way you see the outside of the stencil too, the outside edges of the stencil. And there we go. So I've got that mixed in there. And then I'm just going to pull that up, and then you can see the design there. The other thing that I love to do is I will put a little bit of this and a little bit of the fiber paste, like I said earlier, and mix them together. So that's another option you can do. If you want it to be a little bit more textured, but not as crazy, as fiber paste can get really kind of pokey, I like to say. So you can mix it if you want, like so. I really love the texture of the light molding paste. And then you can also drizzle inks in here. So I have some of my inks. You could also drizzle any kind of color you want in there, just to change the color of your paste. I could put a couple of different colors on there too if I wanted to. I'm just trying to get all of that in there and the edges. But when you do it like this, then you get kind of a variegated, look to your paste, rather than like mixing your paste first. So now you can see it's almost like a ombre kind of effect. And then I can take this, and I did this on just regular drawing paper, and a lot of times I like to use the thinner paper because then I can cut it up and collage with it. So I'm just going to move that aside and let it dry, and then I'm going to, let me just print this on here. So I like to take these and get as much of the medium off of the stencil as I can. Let me close this up, and let me find my brayer. Oops. And then you can just roll it on there. I don't know how much it will transfer, but it'll probably create, a nice little outline. Another thing that you can do is just spray it, and sometimes you can get a better print from it sometimes. Just depends. But that's one great way to clean off your stencil too before you throw it into water. Obviously you can tell I don't clean my stencils. Like, I don't really worry about them too much. I'll wipe them down with the baby wipe, but most of my stencils look like this. They're covered with paints and inks. It's just part of the way that we work with stencils, being mixed media artists. They're super messy. Okay, so I've got some texture here that'll be nice when it dries. Okay, so now let's just grab a little bit of spray. We'll do a little bit of the dilutions. And so you can turn this over right on this page, or you can print just take another paper and print right on top of it. That's definitely how I usually work. I just keep layering some of these pages with more stencils. So I'm just going to turn this over and then use my brayer. So if you've been in any of my classes like Printmaking Unleashed or any of my art journal play classes, you're probably familiar with my stenciling techniques. But if not, this is kind of what I do. I always want to the easiest way to clean off the stencil is to do what I just did, where you lift it off with another paper. And then we'll grab one other one. And then I notice I have some questions there, so let me bring some of those up while I'm painting. Tamara, am I pronouncing that right, Tamara? Is it Tamara or Tamara? She says, great stamps. Are they copyrighted, meaning we can only use them for personal use on cards to give to friends, not items such as clothing that we would sell because they are your original designs, correct? Thanks lots. So far, we'll look at your older casts too. Thank you. So they are copyrighted, my designs, but you can actually, as long as you are hand painting them, you can sell the work that you're using. You cannot, if it's digitally manipulated, then you cannot. Like, it has to be hand painted. So then, as long as you do that, you can sell. Same with the stamps. It's an angel policy, so you can use them in work that you sell as long as it's hand stamped or hand painted. But the copyright of the image, I do own. Yes, if that makes sense. Sydney asked, could you tell us again what type of paper you are using? So right now, this is actually Strathmore drawing paper. I think it's marketed to like their kids paper. And it is in a stack of, let me see, I'll show you it really quick. There's a couple of different papers that I use. The papers that I showed earlier with some of the molding paste and the fiber paste is also my mixed media paper, which is somewhere over here. This is the drawing pack I'm talking about. You can find this at Michael's. You might even be able to find it at Target in the States. And sometimes I love using this. This is from Target. It's Nina Bright White paper. This is great cardstock if you want like a little bit of a heavier paper and it's not super expensive. It's great for cards and painting with acrylic and watercolors. And then I don't know where the paper went. And then sometimes I love also using just some really thin papers. I find like I love the printmaking paper by Strathmore. This is great for stamping, especially if you do wet work too. So this is some of my floral stamps with my watercolors, and that's my floral stamp set with inks. So that's on the Strathmore printmaking paper. And then I also love just like really thin papers. These are from Daiso, if you are familiar. It's a $1.50, Japanese $1.50 store. And we have that here in the Bay Area. So thin papers, the reason I like thin papers are because they're great for collage. And then if I want to use thicker, heavy paper, I usually am using my mixed media paper, which I'm sure many of you have seen. It's the Mixed Media 400 series by Strathmore. It's the one that has my artwork on the cover. So this I love for anything mixed media, and if you want a nice heavy weight paper, that's a good one. And especially good for things like this. So this is the molding paste on the mixed media paper, and while these other things are drying, I will just paint the watercolors on here. This is looking really pretty now that it has all this paint on it. So one of the things that I thought I would share with you, let's throw this in here, is, if you could see like everything outside of this part of my desk, you would probably laugh because it is crazy. So on here, I have some, this should be like nicer, but if you ordered the holiday collection, the Holiday Nouveau collection, which I think is sold out now, these are some of the colors, and actually some of these are some of the colors too, but they're just in a different kind of pan. So you'll see they're very holiday-esque. And I'm going to show you how I paint with these. So for the holiday pans, I have been experimenting with these square pans for the last probably like 6 months, because before I decided to sell them, I wanted to make sure, actually with this particular one, 6 months, but I had bought a bunch of different square pans and flatter pans almost 2 years ago, and every time I bought them, they would rust. And so finally I found a set that doesn't rust, and that's one reason why it took forever just to test them and see what would work. I think I have some paint on here. Let's see. Oh yeah, there is paint on there. So I'm just want to take some of my color. This is one of my favorite handmade watercolors. So one of the things that makes my handmade paints different from any other paint is that most of them have multiple pigments. Actually, all of them have multiple pigments. So you're not going to find a color that's exactly like mine, just because of the different pigments I put in them, and then also the different sheens. So all of them have some sort of metallic, and they all differ. Sometimes it's a little tiny sparkle. Sometimes it's like full on, like this one is like super metallic. You can see it in the pan. But some of them, they look like flat color, like these. But when you use them, they totally sparkle. They look like flat color in the pan. So sometimes it's deceiving when you look at some of these. But they're all handmade. The binder is organic and handmade. And I love making watercolor. I learned how to make watercolor almost over 10 years ago. So I've been making my own paints and experimenting for that long, and also making my own acrylic paints. That's something that I love doing too, where I started making some really cool matte acrylic paints, but those I just used in my own work. But these, I decided a couple years ago, it's actually been 2.5 years now, that I would make them and start selling them, and they've just done so well over the last couple of years. So for those of you who have been avid collectors of them, thank you so much. It's so fun. I love designing the collections and coming up with the color sets. They're different every time, and I have 2 huge recipe books of all of the paints that I've created through the years, and it has been definitely a labor of love. Paint takes a long time to make because it takes a long time to dry, really. That's the part that takes the longest, is the drying part. And once they're dry, then you have to let them dry in layers. So it's like multiple layers of pouring paint in them. And one of the things too that I discovered, that I love bigger pans, and so that's why I make these larger paint dots. I don't know if I have any over here. Maybe I do over here. I make a lot of different things, but the larger paint dots I do because you can use them with large paint brushes, which is nice. And then I'll show you how I play with these also with the to paint some florals. So this is a fun, this color here, it looks probably gray in your screen, but it's a really pretty kind of like silvery with a hint of like violet in it. I don't know if you can tell. You probably can't really tell very well. I'm just picking, I have leftover paint over here, so I'm just grabbing it. So this is a ceramic tile from Home Depot, and I use it as my paint palette. So you can take the molding paste and it's hard to see. Let me bring this up so you can kind of see it. And I would actually fill this in a little bit more. I'm just doing this really quickly, so it doesn't. It'd be better if I filled in everything like so. But you can use acrylic on it, you can use watercolor, but it just adds, you know, a nice texture when you use some type of medium underneath the paint. So let this dry, and then you can also, with a flat brush, let's take some of these stamps now and stamp these things. So there's a couple of things that I love to do with my watercolors and with the inks. If you have them just in a, like I have all these sitting here from prior painting sessions, you can take these, and if you want more of like a watery look with your stencils, you can paint with them with a flat brush. And depending on how much water you have on your brush, that's going to, oops, I moved that stencil, determine if you get like if there's too much water, it'll seep underneath the bottom of the stencil and you won't get that great of a print. But the more that you practice and play, the better you get at trying to get a somewhat of a good image. So you can kind of get a nice outline of it if you want to use watercolor. And then I just turn it over and take my brayer and roll on that. And then before I lift it off too, I just like to take my water spray bottle. Hopefully there's water in here. I think there's a little bit. And then I'll just hit it with a little bit water too, because sometimes there's still paint on the stencil and you never know, it'll make an interesting print just by rolling over it again. And so I should get like a little outside print of that. And that's, I'm using the watercolor and the leftover like ink that's on the actual stencil too. So that creates some really interesting, I think they're interesting textures in the designs with this leftover paint. So I can see there's a little bit of paint left over there. I'm just going to spray it and then turn it upside down. Let's see, what other questions? Oh, you're so sweet, Trina. Hi, Trina. She says, I was in one of Tracy's workshops when she shared her inks were coming out. Yeah, that was at, that was in Paducah. Yes, for the Stencil Girl retreat. That was fun. And I can't believe that was almost 2.5 years ago when I first launched the Inks and Paints. Shirley asked, are the stencils all one set or do you have to buy them individually? So Shirley, I don't know if you were here earlier when I mentioned how they're available right now exclusively. Ooh, sorry, Andy. Exclusively in my shop for the time being in one bundled set. And then eventually they will be available in at Stencil Girl. I don't have an actual date, but I'm assuming it's probably going to be after the new year. So if you know you want all of them, then you can definitely grab them now. And I am just going to write this here really quick so that you can see. I'll put the link underneath the video. And there should be a link that says Holiday Shop, and you can go look at them there. There's a couple of different bundles, so totally up to you. You can buy the bundles of the stencils all together without the workshop. You can also buy them in a bundle with the workshop and the stamps. The workshop will be happening in January, and there's a little bit more goodies when you buy the bigger bundles. And the biggest bundle has, I'm going to show you in a minute, the fabrics that I designed with some of the same motifs. I got new textiles and collage kits, fabric and paper kits that are part of the big bundle that you see there too. Okay, let's see. I just want to do a couple of stamps before I turn these into a little card. So let me stamp on this thing so you can see. And let me get to if there's any other questions. Kim said, will you explain the bonus Procreate brushes with the bundle? That has to be purchased by tomorrow. I'm not sure what you're referring to as far as being purchased by tomorrow, Kim. I think you might have a special coupon, that's why. Because you're one of my previous subscription or one of my VIP customers, I think, if that's the same Kim. But the Procreate brushes, I will show a little sample after I do this, if we have time. And then actually in one of my upcoming holiday open houses, I actually am going to do a full-on demo of how the brushes work. And I am super excited about the brushes. They're so much fun. You can use them in Procreate, so you definitely have to have Procreate on your iPad, and then you can use them in Procreate. That's what they're made for. And let me just grab a little bit of water and a little bit of paint, and I'm gonna stamp. I love to stamp, like I said, with watercolor because let's do this on maybe a new paper so you can see the design a little better. I just love the fluidity of what watercolor looks like with the stamps, because it's kind of messy and you never quite know what you're gonna get exactly. And it's interesting. It's not an exact science of how much water to put on this, because it just depends, because there's different pigments in each of the watercolors, and some of them are a little, not better, but I would say they're bigger pigment particles. So when you stamp with them or when you paint with them like this, it makes a better impression. Like this one, I think, I'm not going to press it that hard, because I think that it might kind of bleed a lot because I put a lot on there. Yeah, see, so the first one bleeds a lot, which is fine. And then I'm going to keep stamping it. But I wanted to show you this because a lot of my colors, once you stamp them, you can start to see the variety of pigment that's in the actual paint, which that's the one thing I love about the paints that I make. They're, depending on how much water you put, the type of paper, you'll start to see some of those different colors come out of the paint, especially as it dries too. So I'll hold this up on the camera in a minute. Let's see. So you can see, it's kind of blurry when I go too close. I don't know if you can actually see. Oh, there. See if I go like this, there's a little blue and there's a little purple and there's a little kind of a red in there. That's because this pigment has it has probably 3 or 4 different, or this paint has 3 or 4 different pigments in it. And it has one that's got kind of this iridescent quality to it. So let's just do a little bit of this, and then I'm going to take another stamp and stamp on top of here too. And so that's what I talk about, like when I say when you first stamp, you never know like how much, you know, water is in there, so you'll get kind of more of that filled up look. And then as you start to control the amount of water, then you get a much cleaner stamp image. Still not going to be perfect. So if for those of you who want perfect, you just need a stamp pad instead. That's going to give you your crispest image. And let's see. This is a dye-based stamp ink. This is, what is this one? Hero Arts Wet Cement. It's kind of like a greenish gray. So let's do this one. Let's see. Roz? Yeah, Roz, just email me. I couldn't see the stencils on their own. Seemed only to come with the workshop. Yeah, no worries. Just message, reply to, there should, in your order, there should be a contact, so you can reply to that, and then we'll get you taken care of. Okay, I just saw your second message. No worries. I know it's so international shipping. It's just something that once it gets over 16 ounces, it's just easier on our end to ship everything international priority mail. So it's something that I've done since I started my online shop over 15 years ago. And I know it prohibits some people, but it's just easier in the long run for us as we're packaging and shipping everything. And especially too with the tracking, because I'd rather know that everything got delivered. So here is, I didn't prime that stamp first, so it does look a little blurred, but one of the things that helps is using a, what is that thing called? The Versamark, to first prime the stamp to kind of make sure that it's clean. I've also heard that you can use a baby wipe, but I guess I could have done that. But I don't stamp traditionally, so as you see. But these are fun together. I wanted to show also, so next week I will have these little fun bundles. These are going to be inside of some fun grab bags. And if you've bought my paints before, then you might have these colors already, but I made a bunch of extra pans, so these are going to be inside some of the grab bags that are coming out in the shop next week. And I'll have one of the things that I love doing during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, is I have different sales every day, so you definitely want to come back to the shop. And then if you spend a certain amount during the week, you'll be eligible to get a gift card later in, I can't remember if we decided December or January. I have to look at the notes, I forget. But if you've been around and seen my sales before, then you know that we usually do that. That's like one of our standards during Black Friday, Cyber Monday week. And then let me just do this little guy over here. Yeah, so there is a bundle now that has the stencils. You can grab the bundle. It still has, no, I think we did one bundle that has just the stencils, and it is regular USPS package mail. So that is available if you want that. It is just like Roz said, it's just slightly less than, and I'll bring up the link in a minute. It's slightly less in price than getting it with the workshop. So if you just want the stencils, you can get all the stencils together. But if you do want single stencils, they will be a selection of them will be available at Stencil Girl at a later date. We don't have the date yet. I really love this one. Will be fun. There's a big stencil that's this exact design too. So one of the things, if you notice what I did, I was painting with both and you get a really pretty mixture of color. What was I going to say? Oh, one of the things, we will be opening up just a few more of the Holiday Nouveau collection. So if you're really wanting that, after this live stream, there'll be a handful available if you are interested in those too. And then next, let me see, what time are we doing? So we are getting close to the end. If you have to leave, you can always come back and watch. But I just want to grab, where's the chat again? Okay. Let's see. Tamara asked, where can the paints be purchased? If you look underneath my video, there is a link that says Holiday Shop. You can go in there, and then I'll put the link also inside the chat after we're finished here. And then they are in the ink and paint section. So if you go, I'll just show you really quick. Underneath, so it may look a little bit different if you are watching this in the app, but underneath right here, you can click that and then it will open up to the Holiday Shop. And then there's also additional inks and paint sets. If you go up to paint and ink and click on that, that will bring it up. So there are the different bundles. There's still a couple of the Holiday Nouveau watercolor palette cards available, and then those stamps and stencils. But this little area throughout Black Friday and Cyber Monday, you will be able to see all of the different things that we have available in the shop also. Okay, let me just finish this stamping because I think that's everything I wanted to share, and then we'll just turn some of these into a quick little holiday card. I'll show you some examples of some other cards that I've made too in the past. So one of the things that I just saw on there too, I think, who was that? Linda. The next question on here was about the dyes reactivating, and yes, that is normal. With any water-based dye, paint / spray, that's always going to happen with watercolor. Because it is water soluble, it's not permanent, it will happen. So one of the things you can do is you can mix your watercolors and inks with different mediums. Like one of my favorites to use is Golden Super, what is it called? Super Matte Medium. That will help keep things permanent. Also, Collage Page, my glue. That's a good one to mix it with. You can mix any of those. And then also, what is this? Oh, I guess you could use this too. You could probably use satin glazing liquid. This dries too slow though. But if you mix it with acrylic paints, it will, you can definitely make things permanent. But, you know, that's the nature of water-based and water or dye products. They're always going to lift up no matter what you do unless you seal them in between. You could also seal with like a spray, but I really don't like spray just because it's so smelly. But you'll see, like, let me see if these are dry yet. Let me just do a little wash over the top of these. Let's just grab some of this paint that's left over here. And then I can take my brush and just kind of lightly, if you do a little bit of a light wash like that to fill in, it won't bleed as much. You can see it's bleeding where it's a little bit thicker, but it's not too bad. You just have to kind of have a lighter touch on it when you're painting. So that won't bleed because that's permanent. Well, no, that's a dye ink. Yeah, actually, is that a permanent ink? I forget. Waterproof. Yeah, this one is a waterproof ink. So then that one, you definitely won't get anything running. So that is one way that, you know, if you want to use something that's more permanent, like the dye-based inks like that, then you'll get, you know, more of a non-smearing image. So I like to fill in like what I'm doing. I just do a little wash over this, and I'm just grabbing like leftover watercolors that are on my palettes just to fill in some of that background. Because what I'll do sometimes is just cut bits and pieces out of this, or I might just cut a part of this out. You know, it just depends. I like to be able to have something, you know, that is flexible. And then you could also go back and layer on top of these too. And dip my brush in a little bit of water. So you can see that's watercolor underneath there, and it's not getting too smeary. But yeah, like here, if I did that over, this is some of the inks. Let's just grab one of the colors. I just grab a little bit of paint, and then you'll start to see it come up just a little bit, but I'm not too worried about it. There's not much paint on there. Okay, let me show you some cards, and I just want to put a little bit more color on here. And you can just like, I didn't shake that up that well. You could also take this and fill it with, let's do a little titanium white over it too. Let's see how that reacts. I love to kind of mute things and make things kind of more tinted. So sometimes I'll do that with the white, because I know that it'll bleed into the white. So you'll see just a hint of that design underneath, which is pretty. I think it's pretty. And I can just put a little bit of water on my brush to move it even more. I'll give you kind of more of that snowflake design. Oh, you know what I do have? So last year, I think it was last year. Is it out here? Oh yeah, here it is. So if you have like a metallic kind of paint too, you could play with that. So Golden gave this to us as Golden Educators. This is, I think it was specially made. I don't think they sell it. But if you have any kind of metallic paint like this, you could put that on top of here too. That would be fun. It's called Holiday Snow. It's kind of like a shimmery white. I think it's got mica in it or something. I'll figure out that top later. But it's a heavier paint, so I just need to use a thicker brush, and underneath here, you'll see it in a minute. It's really pretty. It's got this sparkle. So I actually had a little bit of the texture underneath there. I don't know if you can see it very well. Probably not. Yeah, I can't. So there's some molding paste there. And you can see the sparkle when you look at it. You can kind of see it's got a sheen there. And let me just do one more. I just want to put a little bit more over here. So this is just titanium white fluid acrylic that I'm putting on the top of here. So this is one way you can kind of, you know, get that permanence on it. It's going to definitely cover up some of the color, but if you just dip your brush in a little bit of water to move some of that down, then you just get a nice ghosting effect, which is pretty, especially with this set of stencils because it kind of has that snowflake design. So I would let this sit, and then when it dries, you'll see there's like this little sheen over the top. Okay. Yeah, Tamara says, thanks for showing us this wash. Yeah, so the wash I think is key, like to really bring your piece together. So washing it with one or two colors is super helpful. You just have to let it dry. Okay. And then Tamara asked, yes, she said, can any watercolors be used on those stamps? Yes, they can. So the thing about mine, which is very different than like if you use a store-bought watercolor set, like a kid's, like, you know, one of those cheap sets, there's not as much pigment, so they may give you a little bit different look. But I totally suggest that you try any watercolor you have. But if you start to notice that you're not getting a very good stamp image, it just means that the pigment, there's probably not a lot of pigment inside that particular paint. So try using less water, and then try stamping again. I'm just going to stamp really quickly on here because while this is wet, I want to use this little guy. Oh, that's a lot of paint. I mean, a lot of water on there. I think it's going to be a mess because there's a lot of water. I put too much water on that one. But it makes a nice little outline. I could go back in. When this dries, I can go back in and then stamp it with a dye ink. And that way I could get a little bit more crisp lines, which would be kind of fun. Let me just take some of this out of there. Some of those. So as you start layering and getting more color down here, you start to really build up some interest in your background. So that first layer started with the stencils and a little bit of textured medium, acrylic medium, that was stamped on there, or that was stenciled on there. And then I started doing the wash over the top with watercolor and with the different whites. So that's definitely a fun technique to play with, especially even in your art journal. That would be fun. Okay, so we'll let this dry because it is really, really wet. Okay, I think I answered everybody's. Oh no. Raja asked, do you use a heat tool or do you prefer to air dry? So I prefer to air dry, Raja, because I'd rather paint than sit there and dry things. So if you noticed, I worked on multiple papers at once. So I always have like 10 or so different papers going. And then I usually also, and I didn't even bring out my journals, I usually also have my journals open where I will paint, you know, inside my journals while I am working too. So I'll take some of the, like sometimes I'll take the stamps and I'll just clean them into my journals onto another page so that I don't waste any of the paint on there. I don't know if there's even anything left in this thing, but you get the idea. And then sometimes I'll take, you know, my brushes and then clean them on the journal pages too. So that way it gives everything else time to dry while I am playing and, you know, painting. I'd rather, like I said, I'd much rather paint than sit there with a hairdryer or with a heat gun. But that's my personal preference. So now that this is somewhat dry, I'm just going to do one little thing so you can see on top of here. So there's some areas that, you know, kind of disappeared, which is fine. But I could take another, this is what I was talking about earlier, I could take another stamp pad and then, ooh, this one's like super wet. I pressed it too hard. Look what it did. This one, this particular die pad like stains. So it's pretty, but like my stamp is going to be forever purple now. I can go back over this and then just stamp right here. And the underneath is pretty much dry, so you could do like a whole quilt of these images. Like this could be a paper quilt kind of thing. So that's what I was talking about in some of the areas where if you want to really have a crisp image, then you would use a stamp ink and that would give you that nice crisp image. But I love the loose and the freeness of what it looks like when you just kind of get a big blob of color. And especially with, depending on the type of ink that you use, like mine, that's one of my paints, so you can see the sheen that's in the paint. It's really hard to see in this lighting, but I can see it here. Definitely want to take like a baby wipe and clean this off as much as you can. So before I go, I will show you a couple of cards. I didn't turn any of these into cards yet. And that will be maybe a video that I do for the workshop. I think that would be fun. But I'll just show you some cards that I've made previously. Let me just put this on here so that I can... Let's just do one other thing too. Let me just stamp this one more time. Try and get the rest of the paint off of here. And I always like to do a little bit of spray. And so when you spray, see the difference in the color? You get that watercolor look, and then if it's dry, you get that nice crisp look. So always try and use up as much of your ink as you can on your stamp as possible. And then spray it with water. This is one of my favorite stamps out of the collection. And then now I can just put it on here and then throw it. What I do is I just throw this whole thing inside the water and just let it sit for a while. Okay. Simone, yeah, let's see the cards. Sorry, I know I kind of get carried away. So just some of my fun ideas. This is a little card that says love, and it just twists. So one of the things that not very many people know is that I actually I make handmade greeting cards. Like I would rather send a handmade card than buy, definitely. So then if I don't have time to buy something, then I usually won't. And if I don't have time to make it, then I won't send a card, which is terrible. But this is just chipboard, and I cut out some of my collage papers. So this is actually, I have collage papers that have the kaleidoscope florals on them that are part of one of the kits. And then there'll also be, the digital kits will be available next week too. So this is one of my favorite ways. It's just got little brads and eyelets, and you just kind of move it back and forth, and then you can change the message. It could say merry, it could say bright. That would be fun. You can use different materials. This is a shaker card, so it's kind of a wild shaker card. This one says happy birthday, but obviously you could change it. Like, this actually looks like a holiday card to me. It's stitched. I love stitching. So this one has like glitter underneath. I painted on this little acetate thing, and then I just stitched, threw some glitter in there, and then stitched to close it up, and then now it's like a little like holiday shaker card. It has collage in there of some of my painted backgrounds. So all of these are painted with, this was all acrylic. And then here's another one of my favorite ways to make cards, and it is creating like little mini cards that you can stack. So you can do this. This is perfect with even what I did. So all of these pages I could turn into these little mini cards. So you just cut different pieces of your papers and you stitch them together like so. And I stitched them onto cardstock. And it's just a little simple zigzag, a little, wild stitching there. And then you can put your messages on here. Like, these don't have any sentiments, but you could put, different sentiments on here if you wanted to. And then have like a series of a message. This could also be like 5 different cards, that you could send to people. And then it has like this little like wrap that you can fit everything in. So definitely, and the way that I wrapped that too, it's stitched, and it's torn paper that I printed, and then I wrote this little thing that said friend, but I just stapled it together. So I love the stapler and tape. I use those quite a bit. I couldn't find my other, I made like 10 different cards for this, then when I did this series. So this is actually, all of these were made for Craftsy. I did a digital short video class, and it's not step by step, but you get to see these unfold and you get to see them made. So you can actually find it on Craftsy, or Blueprint, I should say. And then just lastly, if you're still here with me, I'll just show you really quick. For those of you who order the big kits, here are the bigger collection that has the collage kits in it. Here are samples of the fabrics that are going in it. I'm so excited about these. They won't be big pieces. They're going to be actually collage pieces that you can use. So these are the bigger sheets of the fabrics, but you can see some of the collection. And then next time I will share with you the Procreate stuff in our upcoming in the next holiday open house. So you can see this one, I think, is my favorite. It reminds me of it gives me like a 70s, 60s, 70s vibe. But you can see that motif, that snowflake motif, come through on a lot of these. So these will be in the kits along with some of the collage papers. And those, if you haven't seen those, these are what some of these look like too. So just a series of different collage papers that will be available with some of the collage kits. So they're all different. Every order gets something different. I don't put the same thing in every order as far as the papers and the fabrics go. You get kind of a medley of these fun things. So you'll also get to see in the, with the Procreate brushes, you'll actually be able to use the brushes to create your own papers too. That could be similar to this. But that is something that, because we're running low on time, I will share in the upcoming live stream. Let me just turn the camera really quick, and let me see if I have any last minute questions, but I'll show you some of these fun pages, and they're really ready to be turned into some really fun papers. I'll probably add some more stuff, but Definitely fun cards. I think that these would be fun to do. And last but not least, I'm just going to give, since you all are here, something that's coming soon. For those of you who are my paint people who love to swatch and paint, this is something that's coming. I will actually, I'll hold it up so you can see it when I turn the camera. But I'm really excited about this next thing that I'm going to show you. Okay, let me turn this. Hold on, hang tight. And okay, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out. There's so many of you who stayed this whole time. Thank you. And so those of you, I will be doing another preview of this in probably early December. I'm still finalizing it, but this is the first sample that's coming out. If you're, those of you who are in my Art Journal Play creator collective, you got to see the first the first iteration of these. So I'm really excited about these. For those of you who love swatching and mixing paint, this is a stamp set that you can create all kinds of different paint swatch motifs, and then you can paint the different, like my watercolors, other watercolors, you can stamp into them. So this is coming in December too. So just thought I'd share a little sneak peek. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining me today, and make sure that you watch the replay because I know I went over a lot today, and hopefully you got some fun techniques, and I hope that you'll dive in. Even if you don't have my stencils, you can take what I've taught and use them with any stencils that you have. And I look forward to seeing you in my next holiday open house. If you're on my email list, you'll get a notification. We're going to do the Procreate and dive into digital brushes in the next live. So thanks everybody for joining me. Have a great week, and happy Thanksgiving to those of you who are celebrating next week. I hope you enjoy your family, your friends, and yummy food, and I will see you soon. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Bye.